murder of 50-year-old John Kennedy in Ballinasloe in August, and a serious assault on a young woman in South Dublin. So join us for Crime Line in half an hour after the news.
Well, they say a week is a long time in politics, and I'm sure that an hour is a long time in front of the audience of Questions and Answers, which can be seen at 10:25. But now Monday's 9 o'clock news is presented by Anne Doyle.
I won't withdraw from the contest and I won't be bullied, says Aidy Roche. Fine Gael accuses the Minister for Justice of a U-turn on zero tolerance. Garda are treating as suspicious the death of a woman in Tala in Dublin. And many more women are at work, but we're still down on the EU average. Good evening and welcome. Aidy Roche has said she has no intention of withdrawing from the presidential contest. Speaking to journalists in Dublin tonight, she said she had no intention of being bullied out of the race. She added that, as far as she could see, this was the intention behind the various stories that had appeared in the media. A number of former workers with the Chernobyl Children's Project have criticised Ms Roche's management style. They said they didn't think she was fit to be president.
Elections, even presidential ones, are all about photo opportunities. But as the former Secretary-General of the UN arrived at the College of Surgeons tonight, those guiding him in wouldn't agree to a photo call with Mary McAleese. They wanted to wait until another presidential hopeful, Aidy Roche, turned up. So after Mr Butros Butros-Ghali delivered his lecture, the photo opportunity was duly arranged. But once again, the real focus of attention tonight was on Aidy Roche. She says she's no intention of being bullied out of the presidential race.
There's absolutely no question of my pulling out. The People's Coalition met today and gave me an unresounding 100,000% support yet again. And I'm going forward and onward with the campaign. I have absolutely no intention of being bullied out of this campaign. I said I would run a fair and decent campaign, and I have every intention of continuing with that promise.
But she accepts that the events of the past 24 hours have taken their toll on her.
I think I'd want to be a stone if I wasn't affected by the scale and by the scathing remarks and allegations that have been made about me personally. It has been difficult for myself, for my husband and for my family. But at the same time, I'm balancing that with knowing that when you're in public life, you have to accept that these things can happen. I have been very deeply hurt and very saddened that the campaign has been reduced to this.
Meanwhile, Dana, another presidential hopeful, was on ITV today defending her position.
The interesting thing about this election has been that in a country that considers itself liberal and tolerant, there's been a terrible caricaturing made of me because I have always been, and suddenly I'm called a right-wing extremist. And I think if we really are a tolerant and a liberal society, then I should be able to express my belief in God without being laughed at and caricatured.
It may not seem like it, but the race for the Ora still isn't officially underway. Nominations don't close until the 30th of September. Meanwhile, tomorrow, Mary McAleese will address the parliamentary party of the Progressive Democrats. There she's expected to get their full backing and thus become a government candidate in the race for the presidency.
This afternoon, Tipperary North County Council unanimously agreed to nominate Dana for the election. But Dunleary Rathdown County Council voted by a narrow majority not to nominate her. And Cork County Council is to hold a special meeting next Monday to nominate Derek Nally of Victim Support for the presidency. At today's meeting, Independent Councillor Noel Collins proposed Mr Nally, saying he wanted to see a man in the race for the Áras. The Minister for Justice, John O'Donoghue, has said the investigation into the murder of journalist Veronica Guerin wasn't the end but the beginning of the war against drug dealers. He warned that there would be no hiding place for the so-called drugs barons, and he pledged that no effort would be spared in hunting down what he called those dealers in human misery. However, the Fine Gael Justice spokesman Jim Higgins accused the Minister of a stunning U-turn. He said Mr O'Donoghue was now conceding that the zero-tolerance policy only applied to drug dealers.
As it's pure. Speaking at a meeting of Galway Chamber of Commerce, the Minister made it clear that when it came to those who set out to enrich themselves by dealing in drugs and other serious crime, the policy was one of zero tolerance. The government, he declared, was determined to provide whatever resources and legislation were needed to tackle those who sought to profit from the deadly trade in illegal drugs, whether as financiers, suppliers or pushers. He described the Veronica Guerin murder investigation as a watershed, and he assured the public it would not be the end but the beginning of a clampdown on organised gangs.
They had better realise now that there will be no hiding place for them in this state or in any other state. Recently, I published the Europol bill, which will ratify the Europol Convention and provide for a far greater degree of cooperation, exchange of intelligence with other states. This in turn means that the net is closing in. And I want to reassure the Irish public that not only is the net closing in, but we have every intention of ensuring that that net will never be opened again.
The Minister also said he would shortly introduce legislation whereby anyone found in possession of drugs with an estimated street value of £10,000 or more would get a minimum sentence of 10 years in prison. The courts would also be given power to inquire into their assets, and this would be in addition to the power the courts already have under the Proceeds of Crime Act.
The message is quite simple in summary. It's this. If you are going to become involved in drug dealing in this country in the future, then you had better be aware of this fact. Not only will we deprive you of your liberty for a substantial period of time, but we will also take all of your ill-gotten gains off of you for good.
A post-mortem examination has been carried out on the body of a woman who was found dead at the bottom of the stairs in a house in Tala late last night. The woman, who has been named as Maura Shah, was a 39-year-old mother of two. She had a fractured skull. Garda are treating her death as suspicious.
Garda were called to the house in Kilmartin Avenue in Fettercairn in Tala at around 10:30 last night. Neighbours had been alerted and they went into the house. They saw the 39-year-old woman who lived there with her boyfriend lying naked at the bottom of the stairs. One of the neighbours made the 999 call.
Well, I just heard screaming and I came out and our sister-in-law was shouting she was dead, and I went in the she was. Basically, and I went and rang the police. That was it, more or less. Then nobody came.
And where was she?
At the end of the stairs. I came out and started screaming. I knew she was dead, like, so. It was frightening. It was a horrible experience. I would like to go through it again.
The woman was rushed to St James's Hospital, where attempts to resuscitate her failed, and she was pronounced dead 20 minutes before midnight. The house in Tala remains sealed off today and is being examined by Garda forensic and technical experts. They're investigating the circumstances surrounding her death and are at present treating it as suspicious. A post-mortem has been carried out by the state pathologist Dr. John Harbison. The dead woman has been named as 39-year-old Maura Shah. She was separated with two children, both girls. They lived with their father while she lived here with her boyfriend.
The woman and young child who died after being struck by a train near Donabate in North County Dublin haven't yet been identified. The accident happened around 4 o'clock this afternoon. Rail services were disrupted on the Dublin-Belfast line for a time. Normal services have been resumed.
The accident happened around 4 o'clock this afternoon. The 1540 suburban service from Pearse Station to Drogheda, with over 300 passengers on board, was slowing on its approach to Donabate Station in North Dublin when it hit a woman and a young infant who were on the track. Train services on the line, which is the main rail link between Dublin and Belfast, were suspended for over 2 hours as Gardaí and ambulance crews dealt with the accident. The driver was taken to Beaumont Hospital and treated for shock. The bodies of the two victims were also removed to Beaumont Hospital. Gardaí from Swords were the first to arrive at the scene.
The train driver rang in the call to his authorities and they notified the Gardaí. And we arrived on the scene approximately shortly after 4:30 with Gardaí and ambulance and fire brigade crew. On arrival there was a female body on the line with a small infant. They were removed to Beaumont Hospital.
The woman is believed to have climbed onto the track at these steps, coming from the secluded country road beside the track. The accident occurred here at Tierney's Bridge, just 500 yards on the Dublin side of Donabate railway station. But the woman and the infant were killed instantly. Gardaí and Swords are keeping an open mind. They say investigations are at an early stage. The victims have not yet been formally identified, though it's understood the dead woman is from Dublin.
A 28-year-old man has appeared in court in the Midlands, charged with the sexual assault and rape of a 12-year-old girl. The man, who can't be named for legal reasons, is also alleged to have falsely imprisoned the girl yesterday afternoon.
The 28-year-old man appeared before a special sitting of the District Court in Athlone at 5 o'clock this evening. Detective Sergeant Tom Bennett told the court he had arrested the defendant earlier in the day and read 3 charges to him. The man was charged with rape, sexual assault and false imprisonment. He did not respond to the charges. The Garda thought the defendants were manned in custody until Friday. Inspector Padraig Rattigan told the court the Garda would be objecting to bail for 2 reasons. The charges before the court were serious ones, he said. It would be alleged the man had abducted a 12-year-old girl, falsely imprisoned her and took her to a remote area where he sexually assaulted and raped her. Inspector Rattigan also said the defendant had threatened the 12-year-old and warned her not to contact the Gardaí. Judge Mary Fahy refused to grant bail in view of what she said was the grave nature of the charges. She remanded the defendant in custody to appear again at Athlone District Court on Friday morning next.
Sinn Féin President Gerry Adams has urged the Ulster Unionist leader David Trimble to abandon his proposed plan to confront and indict Sinn Féin at tomorrow's talks at Stormont. Mr Trimble had said the Democratic Unionist Party had a right to be heard at the talks, so that its call for Sinn Féin to be ejected could be heard. It's expected the Ulster Unionists will face Sinn Féin across the table for the first time when the talks convene tomorrow. And there we take a break. Still to come on the 9 o'clock news, a dramatic increase in the number of women in the workforce. Moves to standardise the legal drink-drive limit across the EU to the equivalent of just 1 pint. And in County Wicklow, dozens of environmentalists set up camp in protest at a road widening project. Join us in a couple of minutes.
Man United leading 1-0 here in Italy. Here's Ravioli. Foul! Schmeichel's injured. The new boy's taking over. Ta-da! Gloves? Who needs them? Ravioli. What a save by the Honey Monster. United win!
That's football, Luigi. And this is Sugar Puffs.
Sugar Puffs are monstrously delicious puffs of wheat dressed in little honey jackets.
Hey, Monster, where's mine? I've saved some. Your drop, Pete. Funny.
Every day I'm investing in my future, the future of my skin.
L'Oreal Plenitude Future E, the new moisturizing fluid with pure vitamin E, known to be a powerful skin protector.
It's the moisturizer for the future. Of course, it's L'Oreal.
Patented microspheres deliver pure vitamin E into the skin to where it's needed most.
My skin looks smoother in 1 day and seems younger in just 1 week.
New L'Oreal Plenitude Future E, pure vitamin E for the future of your skin.
L'Oreal, because I'm worth it, today and tomorrow.
Snack wafer is crispy and light.
Snack sandwich, a thick chocolate bite.
Snack shortcake, there's 6 to delight.
Cadbury Snack. Make a snack decision today.
From the kitchens of Ireland to the kitchens of the world, Waterford Stanley, driven by quality and one bank. ICC Bank. Your success is our business.
To turn potatoes into a tasty different dish, first you have to discover new home-fried potato bake. Just pour over uncooked potatoes and the common spud is transformed into a deliciously different dish that's golden and crispy on top, smooth and creamy underneath. New home-fried potato bakes, the most exciting thing ever to happen to the potato. Trust home-fried to be delicious.
You're welcome back. And the main news again. Aidy Roche has said she has no intention of withdrawing from the presidential contest. Speaking to journalists in Dublin, she said she had no intention of being bullied out of the race. President Clinton has said the people of the world cheer the hopeful developments in Northern Ireland. He singled out the peace process in a speech to the UN General Assembly in New York. Last night, the President met Minister for Foreign Affairs Ray Burke at a private reception in New York. He told the Minister that a settlement of the conflict in Northern Ireland would serve as a model for other troubled regions of the world. From New York, Mark Little sends this report.
The opening day of the General Assembly is a time for symbolic handshakes and warm welcomes. But President Clinton and UN Secretary-General Kofi Annan want real progress at this gathering towards a more effective United Nations.
Let this be the Reform General Assembly.
A visible sign of that reform, at least as far as President Clinton is concerned, is Mary Robinson. He met the new High Commissioner for Human Rights at lunch and then praised her directly during his speech to the General Assembly.
The United States welcomes the Secretary General's efforts to strengthen the role of human rights within the UN system and his splendid choice of Mary Robinson as the new High Commissioner.
From human rights to world peace, President Clinton called for a renewed determination to end regional conflicts, and among the examples he quoted was Northern Ireland.
Millions of personal tragedies the world over are a warning that we dare not be complacent or indifferent. Trouble in a far corner can become a plague on everyone's house. People the world over cheer the hopeful developments in Northern Ireland.
And that's not an isolated mention of the peace process. Last night, President Clinton met the Minister for Foreign Affairs, Ray Burke, at a private reception in New York. The President spoke of the high priority he attaches to finding a solution to the troubles in what he called the land of his ancestors.
When you have the President of the United States standing before the General Assembly this morning, speaking about Ireland, speaking about it last night, speaking about former President Robinson and her role in human rights area now, all of this shows an extraordinary awareness of Ireland by the leader of the free world.
President Clinton's renewed commitment to Northern Ireland will give Ray Burke a distinct advantage when he travels to Washington tomorrow. There he's due to meet senior U.S. officials at the White House to ask for their continued support of the peace process. Later this week he'll get another chance to focus world attention on Northern Ireland when he addresses the UN General Assembly.
EU Transport Commissioner Neil Kinnock is backing moves to introduce a 15 milligram blood alcohol limit for drivers. That's the equivalent of 1 pint of beer across all member states. He says it would save thousands of lives. Here, the Automobile Association has said reducing the alcohol limit isn't the answer.
The revelation that Princess Diana's driver was more than 3 times over the legal alcohol limit has brought drink driving back into sharp focus. Neil Kinnock, the EU Transport Commissioner, has already made it clear he supports a single 50 milligrams blood alcohol limit, the equivalent of 1 pint of beer, across all member states. He's to put that proposal to the Council of Ministers in early October. 3 years ago, Ireland's limit was reduced from 100 to 80 milligrams. It was a highly controversial move. A spokesman at the Department of the Environment and Local Government said there's already a tough body of legislation on the statute books here. He said their immediate aim was to secure good observance of the 80 milligrams limit introduced in 1994. The National Safety Council has said any move which helps to reduce accidents is to be welcomed. But the AA says bringing down the alcohol limit isn't the answer.
Garda statistics tell us that the majority of offenders are over 120 milligrams, and we believe that by reducing the drink driving limit is not going to stop those offenders. However, by enforcing the existing tough, very good laws that we already have, at least will make their offence a little bit more difficult.
It's understood moves are also afoot in Brussels to close a loophole which allows drivers banned for serious offences in one member state to drive in another. It's thought the ban will cover offences such as dangerous or reckless driving, hit and run, speeding or driving under the influence of drugs or alcohol.
There has been a dramatic increase in the number of women, particularly married women, in the workforce, according to a new report from the Central Statistics Office. However, the report reveals that the participation of women at work is still below the European Union average.
This report draws together a number of different statistics to give an overview of women's role in the workplace over the last 25 years. Presented in the new user-friendly format, it reveals women progressing far faster than anticipated.
Overall, the number of women in the workplace has grown by over 200,000 in the last quarter century, the number of men by 23,000, but still the percentage of women in the labour force is still below that for men. Although compared with our European partners, we're catching up, and there has been a remarkable increase over the years.
For married women, the changes have been particularly dramatic. In 1971, 14% of the female workforce was married. By 1996, about half of all women workers were married. The number of working mothers is also up. In 1991, a quarter of all mothers worked. Just 5 years later, that had risen to over a third. 4 out of every 10 Irish workers are now female. However, Ireland lies in 10th place in the European League of female participation, well below the average. The study found most women working part-time chose to do so and revealed an increase in the number of double-income couples. This report contains good news and bad news on the pay front. Women still earn less than men, though the gap is narrowing. In 1971, women earned less than half of a man's wage. By last year, that had risen to almost 3/4 of the male rate of pay. Minister of State Seamus Brennan conceded that the government should do more to help working women.
It's very good, but it could be better, and we need to do a lot more. It's I think 41% of the workforce are now women, compared to a European average of 45. So we need to